Welcome back to the channel. If I sound unwell, it is because I am, so please just bear with me. In today's aviation news recap, Qatar Airways is expanding its network. Meanwhile, Qantas has made A380 history, and Qatar Airways is buying into an airline. Why not begin there? With Virgin Australia announcing that Qatar Airways has finalised its purchase into the company after a great deal of deliberation. Initially, the purchase comes in at 25% from Bain Capital, a US private equity firm who we know have held the reins of Virgin Australia since this airline entered into administration at really the beginning stages of the global pandemic. Ultimately, the move by the Doha-based carrier comes as the airline wants to expand its overall reach into the land down under. It has been attempting to move forward with expansion efforts into the country for some time. That has been well documented across the publication, but on each occasion that it has attempted to do this, it has ultimately failed. So logically, what does the company have to do? Sit down and rethink its plan. If it's not going to be able to launch, say, additional flights under its own brand, how does it really expand into a market that it is facing so much pushback from? And, well, turns out it's buying into an airline. You may recall in 2023, Qatar Airways placed a bid to increase flying across key cities such as Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, and Sydney. However, the local government pretty outright rejected these plans. This failure to expand further follows pushback from authorities over the fear that Qatar Airways expanding would negatively impact the Australian aviation industry. However, what has caused such significant uproar from this rejection is that the idea of Qatar's past expansion efforts not being approved has largely come down to Qantas, with the belief that the best interests of the Australian flag carrier has been put into mind, not necessarily the flying public. Therefore, by purchasing part of Virgin Australia, Qatar Airways will now put tremendous amounts of pressure on what is still a fellow One World partner and the flag carrier in Qantas. Virgin Australia calls the deal as important for their company's future and part of their long-term strategy that will now hopefully help solidify the airline's position. As part of this acquisition, Virgin Australia will begin flying to Doha in aircraft that are being leased alongside the crew by their core partner in Qatar. Generally, the partnership will also, if signed off on, give Qatar greater access it had desired for some time to the Australian market and beyond. Middle East carriers have looked to continue increasing flights to Australia as they put pressure on companies such as Qantas, which has a more minimal route network at the palm of passengers. However, as the failed expansion efforts of the Doha-based carrier in 2023 demonstrate, the Australian government undoubtedly does remain cautious about allowing such consolidation because it fears the negative ramifications. Staying within Australia, and Qantas has made Airbus A380 history by operating the first commercial flight between Australia and South Africa. The route between Sydney and Johannesburg will add an extra 13,000 seats per year. Furthermore, service will see the reintroduction of first class to customers who will also be able to experience double the number of premium economy seats. The A380 is expected to fly 6 times per week between Sydney and Johannesburg, and strong demand has already been seen. Qantas configures its A380s to seat almost 500 passengers and has been a long supporter of the aircraft. Even at low points in our industry, such as the global pandemic, their love was unwavering. The Australian flag carrier has 8 active A380s and 2 units in storage. While 2 units remain parked, Qantas has committed to returning these jets to service momentarily. The 2 aircraft are expected to re-enter operations over the next 18 months, bringing the fleet back to 10 units, therefore boosting capacity across markets that require it. Nowadays, the A380 in the flying kangaroo colours can be found in markets such as Singapore, London and Los Angeles, of course adding Johannesburg to that list as well. The aircraft has proven to be important for the flag carrier's international network, as it manages manages strong demand and maybe some would argue not enough aircraft. Thanks to the commencement of the A380 flight between the two locations, this is the only A380 flight crossing the southern Indian Ocean. Furthermore, Qantas says that on a very clear day of flying, customers will be able to see Antarctica. Qantas's commitment to South Africa will extend from mid-2025 when they relaunch flights between Perth and Johannesburg. While this is still subject to meeting border agency requirements, the route will really be pivotal in growing demand between the two locations and serving that. Gone are the days where we'd see South African Airways flying between the two locations, and Qantas believes it has a gap to fill. Moreover, when you consider their code share agreement with Airlink and also Johannesburg-based company, there will be greater connectivity options across South Africa, and the QF code will be added to 9 destinations from Cape Town, Durban, among many others. On to the final story, and Qatar Airways is boosting its flights to Canada in December 2024, adding Toronto Pearson International Airport. Once the route officially launches, the carrier will have 14 destinations across the Americas, reflecting what it says is a strong commitment to the market. Qatar's entry to Toronto will put it up against Emirates and Etihad Airways, who already serve this location with their high-capacity aircraft. Therefore, the late arrival of Qatar may be a shock to some, with, say, the two airlines I just touched on adopting a similar model already, leveraging their networks for onward connectivity options, better connecting Canada to the world. Now Qatar will look to build upon demand and hopefully move forward with great success, and in the near future, if it does see that very success, could upgauge flights to Toronto. Service is expected to commence on the 11th of December 2024 and will operate thrice weekly, with QR 767, 768 being the designated flight numbers. Qatar will use its 777-300ER equipment on the service, with flights operating on Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. Once commenced, this route will complement the airline's daily flight already to Montreal in Canada. Furthermore, Toronto will become just the second destination in the country, with appetite for further growth into the market sometime in the future. That will be permitting results and other things you've got to consider as well. Qatar believes the service to Toronto will help connect travellers across the broader Qatar network, and a great focus is placed on reaching locations such as Asia. Now, this could be markets in Bangkok. They also highlight Sri Lanka and many more. Qatar says this can be achieved by eliminating the need to stop at, say, multiple destinations such as Europe or into the United States, and very conveniently flying straight into the Middle East and switching onto another Qatar aircraft. This is something that the airline really does pride itself on, and that's why we've seen so much growth in recent years. They know that Doha is geographically positioned in an optimal spot to feed traffic through their hub and foster many different route combinations while working with many other partner airlines for code share relationships. That'll conclude today's aviation recap. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Thanks a lot for your support. Take care, be safe, and I'll see you same place, same time tomorrow for your latest industry news.